Good morning, students. Once again, we are together for science period, and I hope you remember that in the last lecture we had started with lesson number 8, pollution, and we had finished with the air pollution, and today we are going to start with the second type of water pollution. Now, what is water pollution, or when it is said that water is polluted? Water gets polluted when something artificial or unwanted material gets mixed in the water, or some poisonous things they get mixed in the water, or the oxygen content which is there in the water, it gets depleted, or at times it also happens when the epidemics are spread, so the pathogens may be mixed with the water. So all this leads to the water pollution. Now water gets polluted and three types of changes takes place in the water. The first one is physical, second one is chemical, and third one is the biological. Okay, so water pollution is said to be polluted when it becomes unclean and poisonous due to mixing of natural and artificial unwanted material, when it becomes harmful to living organisms due to the decreased oxygen content, and when epidemic diseases are spread through the water. And the three changes which take place due to contamination or pollution of water are physical, chemical, and biological changes. Then next we will study about the pollutants, about the contaminants which pollute the water, which makes the water unclean. Now, as I said, the three types of changes takes place. So, the first one we will start with biological pollutants. Now, as students, I always say wherever the word bio comes, bio means living, right? So, if the water gets polluted, the water gets contaminated, the water gets mixed with the algae, bacteria, viruses, or parasites, then it is called as biological pollution. Or these algae, bacteria, these microorganisms are called as biological pollutants. Second one is inorganic pollutants. When the inorganic substances are mixed in the water, it is called as inorganic pollution, and the pollutants are called as inorganic pollutants. Now, the inorganic pollutants may be the suspended particles which get mixed in the form of the type of fine sand particles, dust particles, soil, then the compounds of heavy elements like arsenic, cadmium, lead, mercury, and at times the radioactive materials can also be mixed in the water, making it polluted, contaminated, and these all are called as inorganic pollutants. Third one is organic pollutants. Now, organic pollutants like weedicides, insecticides, fertilizers, sewage, then the wastewater from the factories or from the industries, these all are the organic pollutants, right? Insecticides, weedicides, fertilizers, they come from the agricultural land, right? They are sprayed on the crops to kill the weeds and the insects, and fertilizers are mixed in the soil to make the soil fertile. But if it is added in excess quantity, then it becomes an organic pollutant. So, these are the three different types of water pollutants. First one is biological pollutants, inorganic pollutants, and the third one is organic. Then this chart is given in your textbook, that is reasons of water pollution. There are two types of reasons. First one is natural reasons, which are not in our hands. We cannot control these reasons. And second one is man-made reasons, because of the man's greed, because of the man's nature. He exploits the natural resources and thus he pollutes the water. So we'll just go through the points. Natural reasons. First one is aquatic weeds. Because of these aquatic weeds, the oxygen level of the water goes down and the natural qualities of water also change. Second one is decomposing matter. The decomposing bodies of plants and animals, that is dead plants and animals bodies, if they get mixed with the water, they form the decomposing matter, and that is also a reason of water pollution. Third one is mud or sludge. That is due to the river current, or if the path of the river changes, that also leads to the pollution of mud or sludge. Next is soil erosion. If biotic and abiotic factors are added to water due to soil erosion, then the reason is soil erosion. Next is microbes like fungi and bacteria. Now these microbes, they grow on organic matter decaying in the water. The dead bodies or the decaying plants and animal remains, if they are thrown in the water, the microorganisms like fungi and bacteria, they grow, they multiply on this, and thus they cause the pollution of water. Next one is algae. Excessive algal growth pollutes water. Algae is, green colored, that slippery plants. They are very small microscopic plants, but they can be observed when they are in big colonies, when they are in big numbers, and they are called as algae. So this also pollutes the water. And the last one is nematodes. Nematodes are the non-chordate animals which flow in with the rainwater and thus causes the pollution of water. Then let's go through the man-made reasons. First one is domestic sewage. Now domestic sewage from villages and cities is disposed of in the river water directly, without processing it, without sending it for a treatment where the harmful things are removed from it. It is directly disposed of in the river, and it is a man-made reason. Second one is industrial effluent. That is, the waste water of the industries are also directly released into the water. It contains various pigments, then the bleaching chemicals. It contains sometimes heavy metals also, leather pieces, fibers, mercury, lead. All these are directly released in the water bodies. So this also leads to water pollution, and this is a man-made reason. Third one is oil spillage. While the oil is carried from one country to another country, it happens that during the water transportation, the oil spills due to any of the reason, and thus the oil spillage takes place, which again is a type of water pollution. Next is use of fertilizers and pesticides. We use the fertilizers to make the soil fertile, and it contains sodium, potassium and phosphorus, right? These are all the chemical fertilizers. And we use the pesticides to kill the pest like endrin, chlorine, carbonate. All these are pesticides. Now when they are sprayed on the crops and when they fall on the ground or on the soil, and with the rainwater they mix with it, and then they are taken to the water bodies, and thus they pollute the water. At the same time, here they pollute the soil also, right? Then there are other reasons like disposal of human waste. The human waste, that is excreta, is just allowed to decompose. That also cause the water pollution. Then in the villages, the clothes are washed, the vessels are washed, the animals are bathed in the water resources, thus creating the water pollution. Then decomposing hemp and flax in water, disposal of ashes, floral offerings to God, water from thermal power plant. When we travel due to the with the local train, we had seen that ladies and gents, they carry the floral offerings to God in polythene, and they just throw it in Binder ki khadi. That is very, very bad. It pollutes the water. Okay, so these are all the reasons of water pollution. Some are natural reasons and some are man-made reasons. Now, what are the effects of water pollution? What are the adverse effects of water pollution? We had seen the causes of reasons of water pollution. Either it can be natural or it can be man-made. Now, what happens when the water gets polluted by either of the cause, whether it is natural cause or it is man-made cause? What happens? That we will study. The very first one is effects on human being. If water gets polluted, what are the adverse effects that takes place on human beings? The first one is diseases like hepatitis, typhoid, diseases of skin and alimentary canal can be happen, right? Then ailments of liver, kidneys, brain, deformities in bones and hypertension. These are all the causes because of water pollution. So if the polluted water or contaminated water is consumed by human beings, then it can lead to the different diseases like hepatitis, typhoid, skin diseases. At times we get rashes or reaction on the skin, right? Then alimentary canal, because when we drink such contaminated water and it goes into the alimentary canal, that is the food tract, and thus the different diseases of alimentary canal can be happen in our body. Then the different diseases which are of liver, kidneys, brain, deformities in bones, all these are the effects which takes place due to the water pollution or the contaminated water on human body. Then what happens to the ecosystem? Ecosystem consists of the living factors, that is the biotic factors, and non-living or the abiotic factors. And we had studied that both of them are interrelated with each other, both of them are dependent upon each other, both of them cannot survive without each other, right? So first one is retarded plant growth. This we had studied in air pollution also. Similarly, due to the water pollution also, the growth of the plant can be stopped. It can be retarded. Then loss of plant species. Because of the polluted water, many of the species of the plant, they are vanished, they are lost. Increase in salt content of water. Now the salt level in the water, it can increase because of the water pollution, and that disturbs the balance of nature. Then decreased dissolved oxygen level. The flora and fauna, the aquatic flora and fauna, the plants are there in the water, the animals are there in the water, and how do they survive? They absorb the oxygen that is dissolved in the water. But when the water gets polluted, the water gets contaminated, all those harmful substances are mixed in the water, the oxygen level of the water becomes less. And then what will be the consequences? The plants and animals which are under the water, which are aquatic in nature, they get less amount of oxygen, right? Next is disturbance in aquatic ecosystem. Now when the plants, aquatic plants, they start dying, their whole food chain is disturbed, the ecosystem is disturbed, right? So the disturbance in aquatic ecosystem because of the decreased oxygen level. Then the death of aquatic animals can take place. See, you can see the picture on the screen. That is very common. Many a times it is shown on the news also, in the newspapers also, that near the shores, near the beaches, the fishes are found dead. This is all because of the contamination of the water, because of pollution of the water. And of course, the sea birds are also affected when they drink such contaminated water, such polluted water. Definitely, they are going to have the adverse effect on their body. Then besides on human beings and the ecosystem, there are other effects also, like the changes in physical and chemical properties of water. The physical as well as the chemical properties of water are changed. If certain acid or certain liquid substances are thrown in the water, then the chemical reactions takes place, due to which the chemical properties as well as the physical properties of the water will change. Changes in natural color and taste. Now, because the water is contaminated and polluted, the color of the water also changes, because water does not have any color, the natural water, the pure water, right? But if the pollutants are mixed in the water, if the water is contaminated, then the taste also changes and the color of the water also changes. Then useful aquatic fauna is destroyed. As I said, that the plants and the animals both are very adversely affected by the water pollution, because they live in the water, right? So the chemical properties which are changed of the water, they affect their body externally, as well as when they inhale the water, their body is affected internally also. Then soil fertility is affected. And the last one is toxic materials are added to crops. Now, when the heavy metals, they get mixed with the water, or the harmful substances or the liquids or the effluents, industrial effluents, when they are disposed of in the water and they get mixed in the water, these toxic materials, they are very harmful for the flora, for the fauna, as well as for the crops. So these are the three main effects of water pollution on human beings, on ecosystem, and the other effects. Then the third one is soil pollution. Now, soil pollution takes place of many reasons. It can be in the form of ice, desert, mountains, hills, or we can say that changes in the physical and chemical properties of the soil, and at the same time the fertility also decreases. Now, as the properties of soil changes, its fertility is going to definitely decrease, right? So this is called as soil pollution. So out of the total land, the some area is covered by ice, right? Some is covered by desert, some is covered by mountains, and some of the area is covered with the hills, right? Now, very less area of the land is available for human beings. Now, soil is said to be polluted or contaminated when there are certain biological changes, physical changes, and chemical changes takes place, and at the same time the fertility also decreases. The decrease in fertility may be man-made, or it can be a natural reason, right? It can be either, because we had studied for water pollution also that it can be man-made, it can be natural. Similarly, the soil pollution can be natural reason, or it can be a man-made reason. Now, as we had studied the effects of water pollution, similarly there are adverse effects of soil pollution also. So the very first one is the soil fertility decreases due to mixing of salt, acidity water from the industry. Now, the fertility of the soil decreases. It can be due to the water which is thrown away from the industry. It can have acidic nature. It can have salts in it. it can have heavy metals in it. So all this decreases the fertility of the soil. Even, when the pesticides or weedicides, they are sprayed on the crops, now some of the powder, it falls on the soil and it gets mixed with the soil, and thus it creates soil pollution as well as water pollution, because when water falls on this polluted soil, the water gets absorbed, it gets seeped inside the soil, and thus it causes water pollution as well as the soil pollution also. Second is radioactive and other pollutants enter the food chain. Now, soil, crop, water and human body, right? All these, they are also affected by the soil pollution. Sometimes the radioactive substances, they are thrown out from the factories or from the industries or from the atomic power plants, and thus they enter into the food chain and thus enter into the human body also. And radioactive pollutants are the worst pollutants because they change the genetic information. They bring about mutation in the genes and the chromosomes, and thus the coming generations, they are affected by these radioactive pollutants. The third one is, as the water pollution increases, the diseases also spread. Now, when the toxic substances, when the harmful substances, they are absorbed in the water, they are leached into the water, the diseases also spread, and the pathogens which cause the disease, the microorganisms which cause the disease, they also spread, and thus they have a very adverse effect on the human body, human beings, on the plants, on the animals, on the soil also. Then the last topic we are going to start is relationship of soil pollution with air and water pollution. Now, what is the relationship between the soil pollution with air and water? How these three are having a relation? Now, if waste is dumped at wrong places, instead of composting, what happens? Pathogens, they grow on it, and then they are mixed with water, and thus they cause the water pollution. Then the next is insecticides, then the excess amount of fertilizers, pesticides. These are, when used in agriculture, they also cause the soil pollution. Now, if they are sprayed on the crops in excess amount, these insecticides, pesticides, weedicides, they mix with the air also, right? They mix with the water also, and they mix with the soil also, causing all those three types of air, water and soil pollution. Similarly, as I said earlier, if the fertilizers are added in excess in the soil, they also cause the soil pollution as well as the water pollution. Now, soil pollution also occurs due to mixing of the human waste, that is the excreta. In the villages, they excrete in the open, and thus when water falls in, when the rainwater falls on it, it is absorbed in the soil, right? Then the birds and animals waste also create the soil pollution. Now, due to this, the various toxic gases are released and they cause the air pollution. So, the air pollution, soil pollution and water pollution, they all are related with each other. Then, can we control this pollution? Yes, it is very much in our hands to control the pollution. Now, Government of India has enacted some laws for control, regulation and prevention of pollution. Now, there are certain laws which are regarding the pollution control. The very first one is Water Pollution and Prevention Act, which was given in 1974. Second is the Air Pollution and Prevention Act, which was given in 1981. And the third one is Environmental Protection Act, That was given in 1986. Now there are various rules and laws which are there with relation to the different waste, like biomedical waste which are given out from the clinics, right, or the hospitals, then harmful effluents which are given out from the factories and industries and manufacturing units, then solid waste, again that is given out from the residential areas as well as from the farm activities. Now, there are certain government bodies like Maharashtra Pollution Control Board, then the Central Pollution Control Board. All these, they supervise whether the industries, the manufacturing units, the local bodies, whether they are following these rules or not. And in the villages there are panchayat samiti, gram panchayat, then district councils are there which are responsible to supervise all these acts are enforced. Okay, so students, with this we finish off lesson number 8. Lesson number 9, disaster management, we had already completed before this lesson. So today our lesson number 8 is over, and in the next period we are going to start with the workbook exercise. So please be ready with the answers, with your workbook, with your textbook, and take care of yourself and take care of your studies also. Please complete your books on time. Thank you.